Hello and welcome to the Bearded Dragon Games. This is Passing Priority. I'm Jacob Van Lunen. This is Brad Bonin. That's Kevin Jones. That's Gerard Fabiano. And that's Lucas Cruz. Last weekend was Grand Prix Hartford. Very exciting tournament, modern tournament. The finals featured Ironworks combo against Amulet Titan. Two decks that I don't think anybody expected to make it that far. Today we're going to be talking about some of the decks that did well last weekend and talking about Modern at large. So we're going to jump right into things with a segment we call Trash or Treasure. So we look at some decks from whatever format we're talking about in this week, and we decide whether or not those decks would be a good or bad choice for tournaments in the coming weekend. We're going to get things started by the winning deck from the Grand Prix. That's Ironworks combo.
Yep.
So let's start with Lucas. Lucas actually played against Matt Nass, the eventual Grand Prix winner in round 14, the last round of Swiss. And Lucas finished 18th at the Grand Prix, kind of impressive. So, Lucas, what's your take on Ironworks combo?
Ironworks combo is definitely treasure. The deck's become significantly better since the Pro Tour and has better to play against since it doesn't fizzle after 15 minutes sometimes, but it also makes the deck significantly better because you don't need to play Emrakul in the deck anymore. You just have to play Pirate Spellbomb to infinitely kill your opponent, which also acts as interaction in the deck with Engineered Explosives. So the deck has this potential turn 2, turn 3 kill with Mox Opal that also interacts well with all these creature decks in the format right now. So the deck's definitely treasure.
Well put. Gerard.
I think the deck itself is a trash deck. It's garbage. It's like the worst pile of cards. It's very similar to Lantern. However, given the fact that everybody else plays these decks that are also terrible, this deck actually rises above. Okay, and what I mean by terrible decks and trash decks is that, for me, growing up playing Magic, I always want to interact with my opponent. I love playing cheap counter spells. I love playing Thoughtseize, Lightning Bolt, whatever the case may be. And if you were to play a KCI deck and you were in a room filled with Grixis Control or a room filled with, the Teamer deck that I play, you will have a very difficult time winning. However, if you get matched up against these decks that have no interaction, where on turn 3 you're playing a Scrap Trawler and it is 100% resolving, then of course the deck is going to be treasure and you're going to win and you're going to do well. And Matt Nass is a great player. He plays combo well, so it was, he probably got some good matchups, and because of that he was able to win. So overall, in the metagame, the deck is treasure. Just the deck itself, in my opinion, is a deck that I would never want to play. I think it's a trash deck. But for the modern metagame, given the fact that people are playing Boggles, people are playing Affinity. I mean, if you think about it, Kevin, Affinity, what do they have? 4 Galvanic Blast main deck?
That's it.
For the only interaction. Okay?
Sometimes they have Dispatch on the board, but yeah.
Exactly, or maybe Thoughtseize on the board.
Stubborn Denial.
But game 1, very small interaction. Boggles, for example, what interaction do they have in game 1?
A couple Paths.
A couple Path Exiles. Alright, so the whole thing is that when you're in a metagame filled of all linear decks, which Modern kind of is, this deck is really going to shine.
Yeah. I also think this deck is treasure for a lot of the same reasons that Gerard and Lucas noted. It's pretty tough to beat, like they said, like this infinite combo when you're essentially just trying to race them.
Yep, exactly.
Like you're just goldfishing because Hollow One has lightning bolts and that's it. Burn has some Searing Blazes and some lightning bolts and that's it. Or they have Eidolon, which is super good against.
Yeah, Eidolon is good against.
But generally, the aggressive or the linear aggressive decks that comprise the majority of Modern at the moment are pretty much ships in the night with these combo decks, and I think this deck is a lot faster than something like Scape Shift or Ad Nauseam, and is able to Storm. I mean, Remand is good, but otherwise, this deck is pretty much able to goldfish faster than a lot of the other linear decks, and it's pretty good against decks that only have a couple removal spells, which is what most of the decks in Modern are at the moment. So I think it's treasure. Like I said, I also think it's kind of tough to play, and I wouldn't recommend without lots of matches under the belt, be it 25 matches or even more. But it's still it's not as hard to play as Lantern, but I think it's pretty tough. So yeah, I definitely think it's treasure.
Yeah, this deck is definitely treasure. Gets to play with some of the most broken cards in Modern, being Mox Opal and then innocuously Ancient Stirrings. It beats up on most of the sideboard cards in the format that you're going to use to attack a deck like this. Pretty much every enchantment other than Stony Silence, they're just going to Engineer Explosives away. They have Nature's Claim for actual Stony Silence also. The deck is unbelievably lean and efficient at doing the thing it's trying to do, which is assemble, scrap troll or KCI, generate infinite mana, kill you. It doesn't really care what you're doing, just like a lot of the other combo decks in Modern, but it can actually stop what you're doing with EE and Pirate Spellbound if it has to, other than Storm playing like one unsubstantiated and just crossing its fingers that it randomly cantrips into it. Or something like Adnaz playing one Echoing Truth and just, again, crossing its fingers that it gets to draw it, because obviously if you're stopping their Adnaz, they can't Adnaz into it. So, it's combo-ier than the other combo decks, but it's also better at interacting. And it doesn't have to rely on something like Remand, where your opponent can just, like, have a Cavern of Souls Thought-Knot Seer, and you just get laughed out of the room with your Remands.
Did you say that you were going to engineer explosives away their Stony Silence?
No, I said every card other than Stony Silence you EE away, and then you have Nature's Claims if it's actual Stony.
Sure.
It also gets to play, I think it's worth noting, gets to play two of the most broken cards in the format in Mox Opal and Ancient Stirrings.
I just said that.
Yeah, Brad
Brad
just
literally
began my take with that.
I was thinking about other things, I'm
It's
sorry,
okay.
man.
Yeah,
It's
that's
okay.
exactly what Brad said. So,
Well, that's good then.
I think that this deck is treasure right now. I think that it's extremely well positioned. I think the type of interaction that's being played right now in Modern is much more like permanent based or hand disruption based, and people aren't really playing as much counter magic as they have in the past.
Yeah, counterspells are the best against it. Simonia's
Yeah, this deck
Rejection.
is very,
No
very
one is
bad
playing Simonia's
against-
Rejection in their sideboard. That's
yeah,
the problem.
Yeah, this deck is
No one is.
very
They actually
bad
cut-
against
what did
counter
you call
magic
it?
in general.
What's
Ceremonious rejection.
Ceremonious
Yeah,
Rejection,
yeah.
No one's
But-
playing it.
Yeah,
Is it
so what I'm getting at though, what I'm getting at is that this deck is very soft to counter magic,
Yeah.
and you know cards that would be very good against it, things like Thalia, things that were like which Lucas was playing, that they can just Pirate Spellbomb away, or they can Engineered Explosives it away. They don't even have to spend extra mana to cast their Engineered Explosives because they cast it for one and they have to pay one extra, and then it was cast with 2 colors of mana. They're very good at beating the types of hate cards and the types of interaction that people are playing right now. If the format changes, if the format shifts, and people start playing more counterspells, if we start seeing more blue decks that actually pass the turn with open mana, then this deck gets really bad really fast.
Did Madness have 2 defense grids in the sideboard or not this weekend? Because I know
He
we
did have defense grid.
just 2, right?
He either had 2 or
so-
3 defense grid.
Okay.
And those are very good, obviously, against
Sure.
counterspells.
But against a Grixis control deck, which is like your worst matchup because they have counterspells, plus they're going to have
Shatter.
probably 3 copies of Colodons
Yeah.
in hand. At least,
Yeah.
maybe 4 some of them. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the deck's worst matchup is probably Grixis Shadow with like 4
Because
stars
it's
around
fast
close
block.
board and it's
Yeah,
fast
sure.
block.
Yeah.
Glossies.
Any type
Yeah.
of Grixis deck is going to be bad. Any type of deck that wants to interact, any blue deck that's looking to interact, they should have a bad matchup
I
there.
think like any of
Except-
your Blue
Absolutely
Moon
agree.
decks are probably pretty good too.
Actually-
Remand and Bolt.
Yeah, really quick on Blue Moon, I had a nice conversation with Dave Shields. I'm sure you guys
Very
know
good
Dave.
player.
Yeah,
Did
very
he
good
play
player.
Blue Moon that weekend?
He actually played a deck that I've been thinking about putting together, and I gave him my thoughts on it. It's Blue Moon with black. So it's like Grixis Moon. So instead of playing a card like Electrolyze, it's kind of low power, you're able to replace the 3 Electrolyzes for, let's say, like 3 Colodons command. And you're able to give yourself a quicker clock by playing like 2 copies of Tassiger. And,
Okay,
and you
sweet.
can branch out and you know have some sideboard cards like Life Gain and Collective Brutality. Engineer's Explosives will always have 3 colored of mana now, and you can even play some type of cards to beat a Tarmogoyf for a Karn, maybe a couple of Dreadboars in your sideboard.
Blue
So-
Moon has a lot of trouble with burns, so I kind of like that.
yeah, I like
Like playing Brutality.
yeah, having 3 Collective Brutalities in sideboard, and also Tassiger is really good against burn
Oh,
because
certainly.
it's just a big card.
Yes,
Yeah,
4 or
But
5.
well, yeah,
Forever.
any deck like that, I think that you're
Yeah.
trying to get at, right? Where it has some counters, some discard, a fast clock.
Yeah.
Ironworks is not going to do well.
But
Yeah,
the-
KCI does not match up well against Stubborn Man.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But, last weekend, you look at what decks people were playing, like, you walk around the top tables last weekend, there were not counterspells to those top tables.
I
So
saw
Matt was
0
able
Death
to-
Shadow decks.
Yeah, if Matt was able to just, dodge those decks, which wasn't that hard to do last weekend, then that deck becomes insane. And I think it was an excellent choice for last weekend. Super impressive to top 8 a pair of Grand Prix in a row. and
Oh
win
yeah,
one of
definitely.
them.
Back-to-back
Kind
Grand
of
Prix is really tough,
So-
especially with fields of 1,500 players.
He
You know,
gets
you-
39 points now.
Yeah.
Matt Nass with 39 pro points.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
But-
Towards
Well done, Matt
towards the
Nass.
top of the standings for pro points up there.
Yeah.
Not as quite as high as
Almost
like a
locked
Reduke or
for
a Seth
platinum now.
Manfield, but still really
pretty good,
Yeah,
yeah.
really good.
Basically locked for plat just by showing up to the next 2 Pro Tours, right? 45 is usually good enough? Or not anymore?
I think platinum is 50.
I
Okay.
don't know.
52, I thought it was.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
52.
So he
yeah.
needs one more good showing.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
he's
but-
positioned himself well to get there.
Yeah.
I think he actually missed plat like the last 3 years in a row, and he was going for it. So this is kind of a nice, like things coming to fruition for someone who put in a lot of hard work.
Yep.
The next deck we're going to talk about is a deck that made it to the finals of the Grand Prix. This is Amulet Titan. We've talked about this deck in the past, and all of us kind of thought this deck was trash, just like really, really bad. And then this dude made it to the finals of the Grand Prix. Just as like a precursor to talking about it, I had an opportunity to talk to the player.
Michael Maps is very good.
Yeah, he said that he had played a league with the deck at least once a day for 2 months leading up to the Grand Prix. So he had like hundreds and hundreds of matches under his belt with this deck. What's your take on Amulet Titan?
So, one of the Bearded Dragon teammates, Tarek, swears by this deck because Edgar Magalesh, I can never get his last name right, loves the deck. They're the only people I know that are insane enough to play it. The deck is like powerful when it works, and they have a running joke that there are no bad matchups, but like half the field is bad matchups. I have no idea how good this deck is. Nobody plays it. I don't have enough data.
I think it's trash. Usually I think everything is treasure, but I don't know. This deck is powerful, and I know Mapson has been a fan of like land-based combo decks for a while. He played a lot of Scapeshift years back. He played Modern Scapeshift in various forms. I've borrowed like some Scapeshifts from him before. That's how I know this. He's also a level 2 judge, and he's pretty good at that as well. But I think that this deck suits a certain type of player, but I actually think that it's bad. Like, it's good against the decks that are being that are successful. So it should be treasure, but it ends up being really bad against all the bad decks, which there are just as many of. I think it's pretty bad against blue decks. I think it's pretty bad against Jund.
Yeah.
Like Thoughtseize You. I think it's pretty bad against Shadow if everyone's still playing that. Any Thoughtseize decks and Counterspell decks, I think
like
are pretty good against this
randomly awful against the Blood Moon Brews, some Chalice decks. I guess it's not awful against some Chalice deck, but it's like not great if there's just a Chalice on 0. Your Transmute Chains don't work. Merfolk is randomly a heinous matchup because they just spreading seas all your bounce lands.
But then you can just play more bounce lands and bounce your bounce lands.
I don't know how many bounce lands you're drawing, but that's a lot of time walking yourself.
You normally have a lot of bounce lands.
Yeah,
I found
think
Spreading
Spreading
Seas.
Seas is
Yeah.
Okay.
I found Spreading Seas is not that
But
great
Merfolk
against
also
them.
has like Deprive and a bunch of other counterspells at this point.
I don't know why you would play this deck. There's so many other things you can do that are like faster goldfishing and like less complicated.
It's the Amulet
Faster
Bloom.
goldfishing than this? I don't know. When this deck
I've been
has
killed
like
on turn
a
2.
reasonably high percentage of turn 2.
I played a match where
Not necessarily like pure Steel Paladin combo high level, but like this deck wins on turn 2 like close to 10%.
Yeah,
almost.
I had an
this
opponent-
Deck is, like, this deck wins on turn 2 a lot.
I had an opponent who turn 2'd me, and then I cast 3 remands and threw the Reach him. And then he tried to turn 2 me, did the math wrong, and passed with a packed trigger and only 1 green source. And that was the match. But if he had just not messed up, he would have turn 2'd me twice. And, like, turn 3'd me if I didn't have a remand, the only game he lost.
Yeah, I would say 10% is probably, that was the number I was thinking about.
Which is higher than Storm.
If there's,
Storm's
yeah,
like 0.1.
Yeah, exactly. If there is no interaction, I would say they could probably turn to you about 10% of the time. Turn 3 maybe about 25% of the time. But overall, I think that this deck falls into the same category of the KCI, where if your opponents are having linear strategies and their big play is to go to turn 1, double Ornithopter, Steel Overseer, then you're going to have a field day. And you're going to do well, and you're going to make it to the finals of the Grand Prix, maybe even win the Grand Prix. But if you do get matched up against the decks that, again, the more we talk about this, the more I want to try out this Grixis Moon deck, because it has a lot of tools to attack these decks that think they could get away with anything. Then all of a sudden you're playing Kolaghan's Command, you're playing cheap counter spells, you're playing discard, and you're playing like a fast clock. Maybe Death Shadow if you go that route, or Tasigur if you go the more Grixis version.
I think the problem is that those types of decks are so bad against Hollow One.
That's the whole thing. Yeah,
right? So
even my Teamer deck.
Careful dance is like,
and Tron.
Like Hollow One, it's playing this thing that's like has too high of a casting cost to hit with Fatal Push, even if you have a fetch land. It has like Phoenixes and Bloodghast that just like punish you for playing spot removal. It's just like it's really, really hard to justify playing a deck that like is trying to interact as much as possible. and that's kind of why these combo decks are allowed to have a field day.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
There's
Yeah,
also just like
that's definitely a good point. Actually, the one deck
Yeah,
that I think could be good
Boggles, too.
is I know Ted Felicetti did fairly well, and he played Blue-White Control. So I feel Blue-White Control could be matched up well against a lot of these decks. You have cheap counter spells. You have
Oust
Rest
is
in
pretty
Peace.
dope against Hollow One.
Yep, Oust. I really like a lot.
You can have
so.
pretty good
Ooh, I like Oust too.
pretty good tech
Yeah.
against stuff like Bogles if you just load up on like Settle the Wreckages and Blessed Alliances, as long as they don't leave in their ley lines.
Sure. Yeah. I'm teaming with Kevin in a team tournament coming up, so maybe we'll
Mr.
brew up a
about
Blue-White deck.
I mean, I'm cool with whatever you want to do, man.
All right, cool.
Lucas.
So Amulet's a weird deck. I've talked to Tarek a lot about the deck, and he says that Jund's a very favorable matchup for the deck, and Control is also very favorable for the deck. Whereas like Grixis Shadow and like Humans are not good matchups for the deck. He says he just boards out all 4 Amulets against Jund and Control and just grinds them out with like 4 Titans and the land that makes the 0/1 Saproling and giving it like +6/+6 and like double strike. So it's actually like weird how this.
He just keeps targeting it.
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah.
really tough to grind somebody out when they
I-
only have 4 cards that matter.
For what it's worth, I have seen Amulet players do this against Control players, and the Control player just like ran out of resources and just lost. Like what Lucas is talking about is like
Yeah.
actually how it ends up playing.
I've
out.
also seen Azusa just like
Yeah.
consistently get +2/+0 and just chip in for 3 every turn.
Yeah. You mainly have to.
Interesting.
You mainly
Yeah,
have to
it's
dodge
really-
Blood
it's
Moon
really
and,
weird,
Grixis
but,
Shadow
like-
when
Yeah.
playing the deck.
And like while watching, I was like, "Oh, the Amulet player like definitely can't win here," and then it's just like
20
this
turns later, they
stupid,
win.
like 0/1 token, like getting pumped and getting double strike and like all this weird stuff happening, and then eventually,
Colony Garden is a sweet card.
yeah,
We were talking to Edgar after one of the rounds, and Edgar just like had heard what Mapson's record was, and you're just like, I guess he just didn't play against Blood Moon all day, as if that was like the only metric that if you played well, you needed to dodge.
But
The problem is you have to play well. It's like
Oh
a
yeah,
10 out
the
of
deck
10
is
difficulty
absurd
level.
difficult.
The deck is so hard to play like completely correctly every turn, and you always have to sequence everything correctly so you don't like accidentally die to your pack trigger, or so you accidentally bounce the wrong land and then they like are able to like snipe the land with a field ruin or something. So you need to keep the utility lands in hand until you can actually use them correctly.
Yeah.
So the deck's like so hard to play correctly.
And every turn you have access to the cards in your hand, plus like 3 or 4 tutors in your deck, plus like you have to map out your mana for 5 future turns.
I think
Yeah.
the fact that there's multiple people in competitive Magic who are Amulet experts speaks to the nonsensical state of Modern at the moment.
Why? They're still Splinter Twin experts, and that
Yeah,
deck's
but
been
that deck's
like
good.
illegal for 3 years.
Yeah, but that deck was actually
Like,
great.
People
Like,
are experts at what
Pre-ban
they.
Amulet was busted.
Oh, pre-ban Amulet was absolutely
But
busted.
people are going to be experts at whatever they like. That has not. There are Merfolk experts when Merfolk hasn't been good in ever.
I guess what I mean is
Like-
you shouldn't have to be an Amulet expert. There's other ways to win.
Sure, but if you want to win with Amulet, you better be an expert because you're not winning
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
But
like
you could
incredibly hard to play.
just play something else and win just as
And
much.
going, like being
Some
a
people like
Merfolk expert,
challenges.
for what it's worth, is like like being like
with it. A bird
like,
expert.
like, it doesn't take that much. Like
I don't know. I
effort to
never
become a
win
Merfolk
against
expert.
Merfolk. I lose every.
It's because you
I
register
lose them all the
Celestial
time,
Colony.
too, but like I lose them all the time too. I'm just saying that like it's not like becoming a Merfolk expert isn't rocket science, right? Like I'm sorry. Never mind.
Merfolk expert.
He's hitting on all the Merfolk players out there.
Yeah, I guess all Merfolk
All
players are
4?
at me. I'm sorry, Corbin.
You need an. You're gonna need an escort to your car. All the Merfolk
Yeah,
players
yeah,
are just
all
out
these,
there.
like,
No, there's no river near
Fish
here. You don't have to
people,
worry.
like coming out like slimy, scaly.
Like I'm gonna go get
slapping-
some fish and
Yeah.
chips.
I do love fish and chips.
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
Fried Merfolk.
The next art we're going to talk about is Boggles. So Boggles put 2 people into the top 8 of the tournament. Last week when we talked about what deck might be overrepresented at Grand Prix Hartford, I said Boggles because I'm a genius.
And you were right.
This deck is super linear. Again, it's a deck that doesn't really interact with the opponent that much, but if the opponent is not doing something unfair, it seems like this is probably what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
So, what's your take on Boggles? Let's start with Lucas again.
I feel like Boggles is actually more meta dependent than like KCI, as in, like the only reason this deck is good right now is because it dominates Black Red Hollow One and Humans, because like Humans and Black Red Hollow One are pushing like Jund and Jeskai out of the meta, so it's like they're all creature and non-interactive decks, and Boggles is definitely the best non-interactive creature deck. Like you can tell by them playing 4 Leylands in the main that they actually just do not care whatever you're doing ever. and they're just on their plan of making their like 1/1 hexproof into like this 12/12 like Vision's lifelink beater that you can never deal with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just make such a
Basically, I
such
think
a
Lucas
small
hit the
number
nail
of
on
the
head
cards.
Where like this is a deck that preys on Hollow and humans.
Yeah, they just make it so such a small number of cards.
Well, it's just like
In
Daybreak
the deck
Coronet
matter. Yeah,
crushes
yeah.
both of those because they're both just trying to attack you down, and it's just like, well, I'm gonna gain 12 every combat with my Vigilance blocker. Good luck.
I watched a game where Frank Scarron was 12-0 against his Boggles opponent, who was also 12-0, and these were the last undefeated players. I believe he was 12-0, maybe he was 11-1, maybe he got paired up, whatever the case may be. But it was round 13, and
I believe that the last undefeated player was at 11-0.
okay, so he must have been 11-1 and got paired up against Frank, who was 12-0.
There was a
Because Frank started
Boggles
off
mirror at 10-0.
Yeah, so Frank started off the tournament. He ended up being 13-0, make the top 8. And I watched him play against Frank, and it was game 3, and he just punted against Frank. And Frank was playing Affinity, and if you think about it, the Affinity match, or from the Affinity side, they're just trying to play out their entire board, their entire hand, build up a board, steal Overseer, and Boggles is trying to do the same thing. They're both trying to make, I know people always say...
Build a Voltron.
Yeah, build Voltron, yeah. And the opponent just punted against Frank, and it makes me think that when you are playing a deck like Boggles, I feel that, not to take anything away from the Boggles player, but you really only have maybe 1 or 2 decisions. The deck kind of plays out itself. And if someone here is a Boggles expert and you want to debate that, that's fine.
It's pretty
But
straightforward.
it just seems
No, that
that
makes sense.
if you do want to play one of these decks like KCI, Amulet, or Boggles, where you have an ultra, combo-y strategy where you're not really caring about what's going on elsewhere, Boggles is probably the easiest one to play.
Oh, by far.
By far. So the whole thing is that
Absolutely agree.
is Boggles good? Yeah, Boggles is good. And if you do want to play one of these types of decks where you're not really interacting, you're not trying to disrupt your opponent, then I would say play Boggles over a deck like KCI or over a deck like Amulet, just because it's way easier. And instead of, like Brad saying, play 50 or 100 matches, you can just
Play like
pick it
3.
up. Yeah, you just pick it up, and that's it.
I mean, for what it's worth, though, us saying that Boggles is easy to play is not a knock on Boggles. Like, that's a good thing about Boggles.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
Boggles
watched...
being easy to play,
The
should
floor is
factor
really
into,
high.
should factor positively into whether or not you want
Yeah.
to play Boggles.
Yeah, it's
I watched game 2
Yeah.
and game 3. I didn't watch game 1 because I was
Yeah.
playing, but I did watch game 2 and game 3. I'm trying to think if I saw all of game 2, but between game 2 and game 3, the player only had 1 decision, and the player made the incorrect decision and lost because of it. And then you look, and I'm driving home, and I'm listening to the commentary for the KCI Matt Nass match, and it's just like he has a lot of options. Is he going off this turn, that turn? And not take anything away from the opponent that Frank played. Obviously, everybody punted. I punted this weekend as well. But it just, I think it really solidified, because I always thought this as well, that Boggles is just an easy deck to play, and if you run good, you draw well, you're going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for what it's worth, there are a few key decisions over the course
What
of
would
a
you say
match, right?
maybe is like the number one key decision, or the
Nah.
number one thing to play around? Is it like the mulligan? Is that the most
Like,
important
sometimes
Or-
like, leaving open a fetch land so that you can go get a Dryad
In
Arbor
in
to,
response to
like,
Liliana the
to,
Veil.
like, block Liliana the Veil minus.
thing? So play around Liliana,
Make
think
sure
about
you
your
always,
mulligans.
Make sure you always
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
totem umbra or totem armor in case they like rip an EE.
Or Supreme Verdict or
And
something.
also like post board, you don't want to go super deep on a creature if you know you have time. Like if you're against control and you know that their best interaction is likely EE, there's no reason to commit. If you have like 3 lands and a bunch of 1 mana enchantments, don't make your guy too big once it's totem armor and your thing, because everything is going to die to the EE. So you don't want to load up your guy. You want to make it a 3/3 or 4/4 or a 5/5, so they have to answer it, but you still have gas in the tank, because it doesn't matter whether it's a 12/12.
So-
they're still going to kill all your things, and then you're just left with this 1/1 goon, and they're still at 8.
I think one of the other interesting things is
so.
that
It's just like pacing.
remember
balancing
how
your
Daybreak
resources.
Daybreak Coronet works, and
This is what I
like
wanna
don't
talk about, yeah.
walk into Abrupt Decay or
Yeah,
Cryptic
especially
Command.
post-board against disenchant effects, it's usually really important as a Boggles player to make sure that you have 2 enchantments on your guy before you go
Exactly,
for the Daybreak
yeah, yeah.
Coronet. Because if they naturalize or Abrupt Decay, like you're talking about Destructive Revelry, and kill
Yeah.
the 1 enchantment that's not Daybreak Coronet, and they get your Coronet and your other enchantment, you're usually going to lose.
Years ago, I
Okay.
blew out a Boggles player with
Yeah.
Repeal from my Scapeshift deck on his 1 mana enchantment in response to Daybreak Coronet.
So some
Yes.
small decisions, but overall,
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to say here is that again, not taking anything away from any Boggles player, but if you do want to play a deck like this, play Boggles because it's a bit easier to learn than KCI or Amulet, unless you have a passion to try to learn KCI or something like that.
If you
One
like
of the
love
things I
puzzles.
like about
Yeah.
Boggles too is that Boggles players
All the
are
board
pretty
games behind
honest
us.
about their deck being pretty easy to play.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You know, it's like there's like the Tron thing where
Yeah, it's
like
like
Tron
Tron
players
guy.
are always like deeply offended when
Yeah.
they talk about their deck being easy to play.
Yeah.
Whereas like Boggles people are like, well,
Yeah, I played a
Yeah.
1/1.
you know,
Yeah.
like Boggles might actually be harder to play than Tron for what it's worth.
Pretty sure it is.
Yeah, maybe.
Do I play Urza's Tower first, or it doesn't matter? I have Karn on 3.
Every time I field a Ruin Urza's Tower in their draw step, they just immediately play Urza's Tower into Ulamog, and I just lose.
Sounds like you should start.
So far we're saying
Hitting a different
that
piece.
you know these decks are like pretty treasury. These
Yeah, Boggles
non-
Yeah, they're-
Boggles is
They're
treasure.
treasure because of the current metagame.
Yeah.
But if the metagame does shift, all these decks I feel become trash. It's not like, let's just say a blue-white control deck or a Grish's control deck that are naturally playing very powerful cards. Regardless of the metagame, there are still going to be pretty solid decks. But I feel like these decks are the decks that are the fringe decks where if the metagame switches, they become treasure to trash in no time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next deck we're going to talk about, again, is a deck that doesn't interact a ton in Game 1. Top 8 of the Grand Prix. This is Elves. It's a deck
Yep.
that I know Gerard strongly dislikes.
I
This deck.
dislike elves.
Yeah. I had done very well over the course of a few leagues with an elf deck very similar to the one that top 8 of the Grand Prix. And I was like, to Gerard, I was like, oh, you should totally play this deck.
And I did. I
Gerard
tried it out.
promptly lost all of his tickets.
I considered playing this deck in the Grand Prix, actually.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a good choice at this Grand Prix.
Uh,
I've never played it before in my life,
Yeah,
so that's why I didn't play it.
Very good against Hollow One. Very good against humans.
yep.
Very good against Boggles. Pretty miserable against Amulet Titan or KCI, but I don't think those were too
Yeah.
big in the format. It's really good against Death Shadow variants.
Yeah, I would say that Elves kind of falls into a similar category as the other decks. Not so much, because it does have more interacting and more gameplay. Has some great matchups, great matchup. Because against Hollow One, for example, if they're putting into a 4/4 and they have a Bloodghast, the Elf deck doesn't matter at all.
Yeah,
Because
you just
yeah,
don't care.
The Elf deck goes so wide. They're able to play some of their lures. They're able just to get down so much more cards than the opponent that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Same thing with humans. Like Meddling Mage, not really good against them. Kitesail Freebooter, not so good against them. Dahlia, not so good against them. Reflector Mage, not so good against them. So all these cards that humans
Reflector
have
Reflector Mage is good.
against the Elf deck.
If you can
Yeah,
like
yeah,
bounce a Lord
definitely
in
the best
combat,
card in the humans deck for resolves.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
It is.
but
It's the
it would have to be in combat, right? Because if you're just hard casting a Reflector Mage, then they could just wait a turn and then set up the following turn to
Well, you
kind
can,
of do something.
you can still reflect with your Archdruid or Azuri, and if you're able to like set them off balance for like multiple turns with like multiple Reflector Mages or Phantasmal Images, that's usually your route to victory.
and
Okay.
Mantis
Because the other
Rider
thing
is
is that
still good.
Mantis Rider does
Yeah.
pressure a life total pretty
Sure.
seriously.
And plays defense
So like
well.
you kind of need to like the elf deck when it's playing against another like creature deck oftentimes like doesn't just like kill the opponent on turn 4 like it's trying to do because
Yeah.
it can't go over the top. It needs time to build its board.
But in
so the
general,
humans players like Mantis Ridering their face.
Elves has a good
gets-
matchup against humans in
Oh yeah,
general.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, sure. Reflector Mage could be good. That's a pretty good point overall. But I think that the Elf deck again does fall to some of these decks where, say for example, Jund after post sideboard. Jund could build, bring in some more removal spells.
Yeah, Jeskai. is
Yeah,
another
yeah.
one.
Jeskai, exactly. They're facing Lightning Helix. They're facing Lightning
Engineered
Bolt,
Explosives.
Engineered Explosives, Supreme Verdict, Path to Exile. So the deck is good, but it also comes down to what the opponents are going to be bringing to the table. If they're going to be packing 4 Supreme Verdicts, Bolts, Lightning Helixes, I wouldn't want to play Elves. But if you know your opponents are going to be playing Hollow One Humans, then Elves is a great choice.
Yeah.
So,
I wouldn't want to play Elves against like the other combo decks either. Like I think I sat next to Elves versus Scapeshift, and the Elf player put like a bunch of Elves in the play on turn 4 and then just died.
But also, Scapeshift could have cards like Anger of the Gods and
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, the guy
So,
had
yeah.
that, but didn't even need to cast it. He
Okay.
just goldfished faster than it mattered. It was
Sure,
like
sure. Because the Elf deck doesn't really have that much interaction unless you are playing the version with Thoughtseize in the sideboard. I know, Jake, I think you sent me one version with Thoughtseize in the sideboard and one version without.
Yeah.
So if the Elf player does have 4 copies of Thoughtseize, that's going to help.
the versions I saw were green-white.
Oh,
and played
green-white,
Vizier
okay.
of Remedies. Every version I've seen has
Sure.
been green-white.
And they're just playing the combo for infinite
That's
mana.
Except for
not
your
what top
version.
aided.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not what top
The
aided,
version that
yeah.
The version that top aided was card for card my deck, but he had Devoted Druid and did not have Bloodbraid Elf and had like one less land.
So he
Yeah.
had Shaman of the Pack in his deck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Shaman, 4
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every version I saw throughout the
Oh,
Swiss.
that was the difference.
Okay.
He had Lead the Stampede, I had Bloodbraid Elf. Besides
Okay.
that, our decks were like actual identical main
Did he have
decks.
Thoughtseizes on the
Our
sideboard?
mana bases were
Or
different.
no? Did he have Thoughtseize on the sideboard?
I don't remember.
I think he had 2.
Okay.
That might be off.
Every
Yeah, I'm not
every
sure, I
list
didn't
I
check.
saw in the Swiss was green white with Vizier.
Yeah, well, that's
combo.
why they didn't top 8.
Well,
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
the version I would have played.
It's just
I
one
like
person.
Vizier combo.
It's not like that's why they didn't top 8. It's an 1,800 person
Oh, yeah,
tournament.
no.
Everybody,
But, like-
including Mac Nass, and he's a great player, got extremely lucky to make the top 8.
Yeah.
In an 1,800, and no matter what, in these Magic tournaments nowadays, you have to
1,800
be
people,
lucky.
You have to finish in like the top, like
One-
0.5%
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the tournament. You know,
It's
Top-
literally insane.
like better than
Even
that top 4. Right?
yeah.
top 0.4%.
Yeah. The top 0.5% would be
If it was
Nine.
a 1,600 person tournament.
9
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Person tournament, yeah.
So
Yeah.
so you have to get lucky, but overall, I think I said it. I think you guys kind of backed me up on it. The deck really its value is depending on what you're playing against. So it's again another deck that's really depending on what the opponent has to interact with you.
I think this deck is trash, but I think it's kind of close. I talked to Reed about it a little bit. I know he did a video with it earlier in the week.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And I asked why he didn't play it, and he said that he thought it was a little inconsistent, and that he said he like won all his rounds in the first league, and then he lost all his rounds in the second league, and got like Anger of the Gods 7 times or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm
my
like,
point.
well, it's just like high variance. And the thing about this deck is sometimes you put like 7 elves into play, and your opponent just has like 2 big creatures in play, and it's not even good enough. Like they just win in a fair way.
It usually is good enough,
I mean,
but
if they're just putting big guys into play, I cannot imagine a scenario where I lose.
These people didn't have Shaman. I don't understand.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, the green white deck doesn't play Shaman, so I think
Yeah.
with Shaman, your matches against a lot of these decks that maybe play like a Tarmogoyf
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be gets way better because you're like, all right, I just need to attack the opponent down to like 6, and then I could hopefully
Yeah,
Shaman
they
them out.
stabilize. They can get like
Yeah.
Alpha Strike twice, and they stabilize at like 5 to 8 life, and
Just die.
Yeah,
Shaman just kills you.
playing for
But
day
otherwise,
2.
it's yeah.
Yeah, playing for day 2, I played against a green white. It wasn't elves, but it was a green white company deck, and I ended up beating the opponent, and I was able to go down to like 3 life or 4 life. I think one game might have been at like 2 life.
Was it the combo deck
It was
or
the,
the Todd Stevens deck?
no, it was the combo deck, and they don't have any type of form of direct damage like Shaman.
Well, they have
Attack.
one walking ballista.
They
Yeah,
they
well,
should
yeah,
have
walking
one.
ballista, but I think I might have been at 4, so they would need 8
Okay,
mana.
yeah.
So yeah.
All right. So, did you get to talk about elves? What do you think about elves?
He loves elves. He says
I am not a fan of elves.
because he plays
I think
humans. Of course, he doesn't like elves.
Well, no, that's not it. It's just like I think the deck is like too inconsistent, and a lot of the times it just doesn't kill until like turn 4, turn 5, when it also just doesn't care about the opponent at all. If you just don't draw Collected Company in the deck, then like you're just playing these like dorky 1-for-1s and have like 10 mana on turn 3 and like nothing to do with it. So
And that's like
I saw that
So,
happen a few
so it
times.
needs Duskwatch Recruiter.
All right.
that
so,
card might be very good in the deck.
personally,
That's sweet.
I run like hot fire when I play this deck. I like cannot do worse than 4-1 in a league when I play elves. So, I mean, I think it's treasure, but everything that everybody else is saying about the pitfalls of the deck, those are all true things. Those are the ways that I lose matches. Those things just very rarely happen to me.
Well,
So you're just an
It's
elves
like-
player, the same way that Tron
Yeah, I mean,
players
I've
always
won-
have no
I've,
Tron.
Like, I've
Yeah.
like won tournaments playing elves in the past, but those decks all had Glimpse to Nature.
and
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty good card.
Jake,
That card is sweet.
the deck is better, right? When Dominaria comes out because you get Llanowar.
Ladder Wolf is not legal in Modern,
No,
already?
Llanowar Elf
Yeah.
already is.
Yeah.
Findhorn is the one that's not legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't reprint that one, so.
It was just a joke, Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even play Findorn. Like I mean, I guess maybe you would to mix.
play
your
Elvis
You already have
Mystic,
Elvis
right?
Mystic.
You have
There's
Elvis
already
Mystic,
8
yeah,
of
you
those.
already
Yeah,
have
you don't need 12.
You have
What about
more
the
than
snow
enough
one?
those.
Boreal
Boreal
Druid
Druid?
doesn't make green, it makes snow. It's strictly worse than Elvish Mystic.
No, it doesn't make snow. It makes colorless.
Yeah,
Makes
it's
color.
But it's a snow mana because it's a snow creature, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
So it's a
but
snow
it can
mana.
cast a thought.
It can
Thought
cast
Knot
Thought
Seer.
on Seer, correct? Or
Yeah,
Reality Smasher, so that's all
But
I
it
got.
can
That's
also
kinda
activate
dope.
scrying sheets.
Yeah.
It can. Oh, it can.
Dude,
activate
Eldrazi
Scrying
Elves.
Sheets.
Because it's
Yeah,
snow.
Eldrazi.
Eldrazi?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Eldrazi. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, because Thought-Knot
Eldrazi.
Seer's got a lot of synergy with 1 mana 1/1.
Turn 2 Azuri, turn 3 Thought Not Seer. Your move.
Could be good.
Love it.
Coming to a local metagame.
You only
near
need
you.
one temple to turn to Thought Knot them.
But that doesn't make green for your elves. Oh,
You only
Yeah,
have one
maybe
temple.
so.
You go.
maybe we
you
play
go forest,
Brushland.
Boreal and then Eldrazi Temple. Turn two.
Yeah.
Play all the great white
That's what I'm
sideboard
talking
cards. I
about.
kind of like it.
Brushland, Canopy.
All right, that's
All right,
enough. That's
let's
enough,
move
Shred.
on. Next, we're going to talk about the blue-red decks of Modern.
Oh,
so
me.
I'm more specifically talking about the decks that play, like, if a deck plays 4 Snapcaster Mage, 4 Remand, 4 Lightning Bolt, and some number of Cryptic Command.
I like
This
this.
is it. Those are the decks that fit into this category. I want to know if you wanted to be playing these cards,
I go first.
what deck would you
Or should
play,
I'll
and
go first.
do you think that these decks have what it takes to compete in the current Modern?
Yeah, just
competitive?
let Kevin talk for all of
Well,
us.
we
'cause-
played the same deck.
Did you?
We played an identical deck. I just went 5-1, 5-3, and Kevin went 6-0, 8-6.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. I registered a Jeskai through the Breach deck in the Grand Prix. So the theory behind it was essentially that the blue-red Breach deck I thought was pretty good, but it was a little bad against Hollow One and Burn as it didn't have really enough early interaction. And as a consequence of that, I wanted to play the card Path to Exile to deal with larger creatures early, the card Lightning Helix to bolster the life total, and I really liked the position of the card Timely Reinforcements. So I played main deck copies of all of those cards. But the thing is, when you jam a bunch of weird 1-for-1s into your combo deck, you're less streamlined and less able to like assemble the combo reliably. So what ends up happening is that your deck ends up being a little inconsistent. And my deck was a little bit worse than Blue-Red Breach and a little bit worse than Jeskai Control, but better at doing a lot of things that those decks were not good enough at doing. Like, I was winning games where I was super far behind because it just, like, got them with the combo.
So I have a
And-
question for you guys, having played this deck, right? Like, you guys have been playing a lot of Magic Online in the weeks leading up to this Grand Prix.
yeah,
and you were
some.
playing, like, some good decks. Like, you were playing, like, Bant Company and stuff. And then, like, right before the Grand Prix, you just, like, jump ship and play, like, a weird pile of cards for no reason.
But it's not
Yeah.
no reason. Do you want to know the reason?
I got
Yeah,
it.
we want to know
Like,
the
no,
reason.
I'm just, like,
What's
really
the reason?
serious.
Tell
Like,
us
like,
the reason.
I got
Like, you
got
guys
this.
seem like you want to do well at Magic tournaments. Like, why would you...
So,
Like, and I've
Yeah.
made this mistake in the past when I was
got it.
younger, but, like...
so this deck is certainly, like, certified awful.
Okay.
But I had
Don't
been playing
play it no matter
Bant
what.
Company. I had played Bant Company at least a league a day for probably 12 days, maybe 14 days. And it was always at least 5 cards different than the day before. I tried Bant Knight. I tried Bant Value. I tried Bant Value with Knight. I tried Nightfall combo, no Druid combo. I tried Druid combo, no Knight combo. I, like, tested for 8 or 9 days and found a list I was happy with. And then I had, like, a 65% win rate for, like, 4 days with it. And then I started losing to the Human Take cards. Everybody had an extra Whip Flare out of Affinity. Everybody had an extra Anger of the Gods. Everybody had 2, 3, or 4 Grim Lawlamancers, even in decks that card had no business being in. So the cards that beat up on humans also crushed me, and I just found that humans is just a better version of the same deck I'm playing. Because the best card in my deck is Reflector Mage, and it's better in humans.
Yeah.
But I wasn't smart enough to play humans, because I tried to play 2 leagues with Lucas on humans, and we had such notable quotes as, so we're playing turn 1 Vial, right? Oh my god, Brad, you played an Ancient Ziggurat. And other things like that. So I deemed I was nowhere near smart enough to play humans. And every time we'd get to turn 2, I'd be like, so just jamming this random 2-dropper. And he's like, no, you always freebooter. And I'm like, not smart enough to play this deck. Got it. So...
Well, it doesn't seem like you're not smart enough to play this deck. It just seems that you didn't practice enough.
Well, I didn't have
and
enough
learn.
time also. I, like, decided that everything I had tested was bad with, like, 4 days to go. And I was like, well, I can be uncomfortable. I also tried Mardu. And, like, that deck is also bad. Because for the same reasons that we discussed last week. It's like, yeah, if you pinpoint the exact metagame, sure. But you have to play really, really well. Things still have to break your way. And James Woolmacher put it really, really nicely. The deck has no nut draws. Your nut draw is, like, turn 3 Blood Moon, crossing your fingers that your opponent can't play Magic in Mardu Pyromancer. The deck, like, doesn't have easy wins. And in Modern, something that all these linear combo decks have is easy wins.
See, I think that that's an overrated thing, though.
Yeah, I agree
think
with Jake.
I think some people want a deck that has a nut draw because, like, they get worried that, like, they're not going to win the tournament
Okay.
without, like, getting, like, free wins. They want a breather. You know what I mean? They want, like, somebody to get tired and to, like, not step out and contest their shot, and for them to just, like, be able to, like,
Yeah.
try to, like, take over.
Okay, yeah.
Like, that's, like, you're not playing to win if you're like, oh, like, I need nut draws. if I win this tournament.
But so
Yeah,
every
but
deck...
what if you don't think you're good enough
No.
to
So
win
every deck
without
that
a nut draw in your deck?
Oh, then play Tron.
yeah.
Like the only time I ever won a Grand Prix, I had just cast Turn Fort Willemog all day. Like, I'm probably not very good, right?
No,
You're good.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, I need... If
You won the Legacy World Championship.
Well, there's, like, no reason to, like... If you're good enough that you don't need training wheels, then don't use training wheels. But if you're not good enough to win without training wheels, put all the training wheels possible on and ride with them.
Yeah.
Because it will let you win.
If you want to win. But then you also, I think some people, in addition to wanting to win, also want to improve as a Magic player. And, like, something that they enjoy
That's a
about
whole
Magic.
different thing, but yeah,
Like,
I
some
agree.
people...
Yeah.
Some people play Magic to win. Some people play Magic because it's like an exercise in cerebral, competition or whatever.
It's exercising like cerebral superiority against other people.
Yeah.
It's like conventional competition, but through this lens because you can't use whatever other avenue to do it. So it's like you end up with a lot of like former high school athletes or college athletes who play because they, got hurt or something and can't play for a different reason.
But
And like you end up seeing like people who are like really competitive people don't care so much about the actual game as they do about like imposing their will on their opponents.
But so to circle back to the original question,
Yeah,
we ended up on this awful deck because all the decks we had tested.
Stop being so mean.
We didn't
it's
like-
a good deck.
Okay, the deck is fun, but so
Dude, the deck is terrible.
at least my reasoning was every deck I've played is either bad or I'm not good at. I'm comfortable on this deck, and I'm confident that I won't make major mistakes with this deck.
How'd you do in the tournament?
I went 5-1, 5-3. But, like, I lost to Eldrazi twice with
You went
Remand in my
10-4?
deck. No.
No, he was
5-1
1
and
5-3.
5-3.
Brad's just trying to make himself feel better by saying, "Hey, I was 5-1, and then
Sure,
I went 5-3."
I lost because the cards in my
I'm not
deck
trying to be
didn't
mean,
li-
but-
like,
but
but
that's
I
what,
lost
you know.
because the cards in my deck lined up
like it.
So you
awfully
went
against.
3-3.
Yeah.
You went
I
3-3.
knew it. I just
But, like, I got crushed by cards that Remand has no business beating. My opponent's Cavern of Sold Out Eldrazi's. So, like, whatever blue deck I was going to play that weekend, I was going to lose those two matches. And then I lost to a Bogle's draw where he just, like, had 3 Umbras and I only had 1 EE. So, like, he paced his threats correctly and just, like, played his 5 better than the cards that my 7 could produce. I didn't combo him because I didn't draw it. So, like, my deck choice wasn't great, but my reasoning for my deck choice would have led me to a plethora of equally bad decks that I would have done the same with. And at least I was, like, confident and enjoying the matches that I was playing.
I think for deck choice, you should always try to choose the deck that you have the highest win rate with, and that's all that matters, regardless of free wins or anything. And I think you came to the conclusion that Jeskai Breach was your highest win rate, which I just don't agree with, because I think the deck is nowhere near good enough to give you a good enough win rate, regardless of how good you are with the deck.
Sure.
Should
So
I
I
have
think
just
you
played Grixis Delver in every single
Well,
tournament?
no, that deck's also
That
bad.
deck is awful. Kevin just wants to play Grixis Delver constantly.
That deck
but, like,
is great.
If you want to play Grixis, right now you should probably try to play Shadow. It's still like a decent deck. It did kind of get pushed
The
out
other thing
by
was I
humans
got-
and
I got home after
And,
Modern
Hollow
on.
One.
Go ahead.
He was saying
it did
Grixis
get
Shadow?
it did get pushed out by humans and Hollow One. But I do like how Dylan Donegan changed the deck to be more red based with like Grim Lava Mantis in the board and 3 Bolts main. Because I think you definitely need that to interact with the creatures.
Yeah, he had less Stubborn Denials in his deck.
Yeah, there were 2 mains.
Which makes sense.
But so
Yeah, I like that take a lot.
Did he X3
Also,
or
I
X5?
think that if
Forget.
people are
I think it's
if you're looking to go that route, I think that Grixis Control may be poised for a comeback with all these combo decks doing
but it's
so
bad
well.
against Bogles and Tron.
You just can't win. You can't beat everything. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can't beat everything. No Tron. No modern deck can beat.
Splinter Twin can beat everything.
But so to answer Lucas back,
Wide
also
span.
the other
That's why I hate the format so much.
Blue Eye Control can almost beat everything.
the other thing is the reason we finally locked in the deck was because I had floundered so much on Moto all over both weeks, and I just like got home on Thursday night and fired up a league at 1 a.m. and like easily 5-0'd.
Yeah,
and I was like,
played
well, if I
here.
get 5-0 at 1 a.m. and we also like close to 5-0'd both times that we played it with Kevin's coaching students. So it was just like, well, I know in my heart that this deck isn't very good, but like every time we fire it up, we just like crush people because they're like not playing correctly. And I'm like, well, is the average Moto player really worse than the average 2-1 bracket player at a Grand Prix? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I think the average Magic Online player is better
Yeah.
than the average Grand Prix.
I think
So-
probably.
Like my win rate
Yeah, yeah.
didn't match up to the power level of the deck, but it was winning. Like I was just like getting lucky and getting people more than I was willing to admit.
So, if you had to pick a blue-red deck, what blue-red deck would you pick?
I think that if you're trying to play a combo deck, I don't think that you
It
obviously.
doesn't have to be a combo
okay.
deck. Just a blue red deck. Just a deck that plays Snapcaster Mage, Lightning Bolt, Remand, and Cryptic.
I think your
If you're
deck
playing a deck
has
that
to have
plays those
Lightning
cards.
Helix because I played blue red a bunch and just got crushed by a bunch of random stuff that I didn't feel like I was supposed to lose to. You also just like can't ever beat Burn. I had a game against Burn where I turned 2 a Dragon's Claw and turned 3 to Dragon's Claw, and then I just like drew lands and died to 2 creatures on board.
Wow.
That
I
was
would
how
play-
bad my blue red my Burn matchup was on blue red.
I would play
Like-
blue-green Scapeshift.
We said play a blue red deck.
Yeah, I mean, there's red in that deck.
So then it's
Snapcaster
Rug
Mage,
Scapeshift.
Remand.
He said 4 bolt, 4 snap, 4 remand was
Oh, I don't
a
think he played
requirement
4
for the
bolt,
deck.
but it's 4
So-
Remand, 4 Snapcaster Mage, and Cryptic Advance.
Scapeshift could be good. But I think I would probably... I don't think Blood Moon's well positioned right now, so I don't think I'd be trying to Blue Moon people.
Yeah, I don't think Blood Moon is that well positioned either. The deck that I actually want to try, and maybe for the team tournament coming up, I want to try Blue White, and a Blue White version that maybe is a bit more aggro, and I want to play Mana Tide. I think Mana Tide is just the
You
best
wanna play,
card.
like, creatures
Isn't
and
Mana
stuff?
Tide just worse than Force Spike?
You can't play Force Spike.
Force Spike's not modern legal.
Yeah, Force Spike's not modern legal.
That's a good answer.
I want to
So-
play Disrupting Shoal. I think
No.
that card
That
is
card
great.
is awful.
Disrupting Shoal is so bad. It's terrible, Disrupting Shoal.
Have
But
you ever drawn
I
a
think Mana Tide's
remand
insane.
dead on board? Disrupting Shoal is like that, except you can't remand your own Lightning Bolt
Yeah.
to try to play Magic.
Mana Type is sweet. I don't know
Yeah,
about that.
I want to play Blue White with Mana. I want to play Blue White deck that's like low to the ground. I don't want to play any Path to Exiles. I want to play Oust instead.
Oust could be good.
So
And like Blade Splicer. And
Does
stuff
Oust...
Like that?
possibly Blade Splicer.
Does Oust mean it has to be attacking, or it's just like sorcery speed they gain for?
No, Oust
gain
is
3.
one
I know
mana.
Condemn they have to be attacking.
No,
but-
Oust is 1 mana sorcery. Put target creature second from the top.
Okay.
So it's like a weird remand that's actually not a dead top deck.
And I like when I play Oust. There's been many times where I ousted my own Snapcaster Mage, and then like Seerum's Visions,
Oh, yeah,
and then
yeah.
like you're gaining life. You're like getting more use out of your Snapcaster Mage.
You
and stuff
also
like
can
that.
like oust and then Field of Ruin if you actually want to get rid of it forever.
Exactly, but the whole thing is that when you're ousting, it's kind of like when we used to play Memory Lapse back in the day. It's not card disadvantage for you. It's like if they go turn 1 Noble Hierarch and you're like oust, they're drawing that Noble Hierarch on turn 3,
When they-
which they don't even want.
Can't spend that mana in a maximum rate of
Exactly. Yes.
efficiency.
Yeah.
So it actually like costs them more than
But
the
yeah,
one
Yep.
turn.
I think
Yeah.
the deck
That's
is-
the deck I want to play.
Let's work on
I
that.
think if
Yeah,
you're going to play a
it's
blue
right
deck,
there,
it has
buddy.
to gain life.
Yeah,
Boom.
Is the
there are a
real
lot of
answer.
hierarchs being played. I think Oust is really, really
And
good.
Mana Tide's so good because the biggest problem with the blue-white deck is that game 1, when you're playing against like these combo decks like Storm or like Ad Nauseam or just in general, even Tron, that you're on the play, you're like turn 1 land, pass, then they're just like map, for example. If you have the Mana Tide there, the game is totally different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
think
that
it's
card
funny. I think it's funny
works
that
late.
you're talking about Mana Tide against Tron, but
yeah.
your argument makes sense.
Like
Yeah.
they have Tron by turn 3. Like Tron is already a good matchup for you because you have 4 copies of Spreading Seas and 4 copies of Field of Ruin. So it's like already a pretty good matchup, I think. And I would play Simonius Rejection.
I
So
was
you don't
thinking
want to
about-
play Mana Leak then?
I was thinking
You
about
specifically need a 1-drop? You don't want to try Mana Leak again?
Mana Leak's okay.
Mana Leak and Mana Tide, maybe.
I was thinking about specifically how good the Faithless Looting decks would be if their Faithless Looting got countered on turn 1.
Yes, I thought
And
about
the
that
answer
too.
is like not very
Not
good
good at all. Mana Tide is the I'm going home and buying
That's
all
why
the
I was
foil
like just
Mana Tides, all the
looking
Full
at-
art promos,
the
too.
full art promos.
looking at the
They're
art
not
of
foil.
Disrupting
They're not
Shoal
foil,
and
though.
They're
smiling to
spiking up.
myself, but alright, so we have been on top decks for like 45 minutes. Let's
Yeah, all
rip
right.
it.
What's the next topic?
So, Kevin has an announcement about the Bearded Dragon Games.
All right, let's go, Kevin.
So I went to grab the iPad, but I actually have it all in my head, so it's okay. So everyone, I know not everyone who watches the show is local, but I know a lot of people who watch the show are in fact local to the New Jersey Northeast area. So I'm happy to announce, and if you may have seen it already on social media, but we're going to be running SCG Regionals on Saturday, June 2nd.
Yeah.
The location is yet to be announced, but the event is a modern main event, 5K with cash prizes, and SCG points, at least 20 for first, I believe. Also, there's a modern 1K
20
side
what?
event,
20 SCG points.
20
for
SCG
first.
points for first.
And you get invitations.
And like
Yeah.
14 grand or 14, not 14 grand, 1400 or 1200.
Yeah. It
It's
also
like a
gets you
5K price
an
for it.
invite to our Black Lotus Open. It
Yep.
gets you an invitational invite.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So that said, we're really excited to announce that we're doing that, and we're going to be promoting it a ton over the next month and a half or so until
Yep.
the event.
There's gonna
We're
be
going to have
coverage.
live coverage. The coverage team will be. We'll let you guys know who that's going to be coming up soon. We'll have some teasers for that and stuff like that. There's going to be something on Sunday, whether it's back at the store or at the venue still. Possibly team trios, possibly legacy. We're not sure yet, but there'll be a sweet side event for sure. There's an old school event and a modern rebound 1K on Saturday as well. We're just super happy that we were able to get SCG regionals and put something super big and awesome on large scale on for everybody who's so loyal to the store and to the brand. And thank you, everybody, and we hope to see you there. And that's it for that.
Yeah, we have a bunch of side events firing. We have the old school event, we have the modern rebound event, we have Legacy, Modern, and Standard on demand. We're going to have drafts. We also, I think, earlier than the event, we have gunslinging.
I think we're going to do something with the team, like a lot of our team members, and try to put bounties on them or, maybe bring them out east for the tournament so you guys have opportunities to play against some of our pro team or what have you. There's a lot of cool stuff. We're just going to make it the best event we can. We're running around all day working on stuff, so it's exciting.
It's going to be great.
I'm happy about it.
All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the state of Modern. We've been touching on this a lot.
Ooh, I have something else to say. This is great.
Over the course of the show, we've been talking about, the linear decks and why those have been able to succeed. I think the more interactive decks are really poorly positioned against things like Hollow One and Humans. So, that's given decks like KCI Combo or Amulet Titan, a pretty clear pathway to enter the format.
A window to jump through, exactly.
Before we get into the thick of this conversation, Kevin, again, you had a conundrum I was supposed to.
Yeah, so this is a question that we're gonna toss up on social media at some point later on, but I would just like everyone to stay with me for a second while I craft a scenario for you to imagine. So, sleeping happily in your bed, in your home, and you wake up to a rustling noise outside of your home, and you throw open the window and you look around, and there in the corner of your yard, corner of your apartment complex, wherever you live, is a genie just kind of floating there. And you're obviously very confused, and the genie floats over to you and says, "Hello, Mr. Jones." And I say, "Yes." And the genie says, "You have the power to make Modern the best format it can be. All you have to do is ban or unban one card." And the catch is that you can ban or unban one card, but you cannot make any other changes as a direct result of this. So if you make the ban and restricted list announcement, you make it, and it can only be one card on it. And that's it. And that's it. So the question is, what would your wish be for the genie? What card would you ban or unban to fix Modern? Make it the best format it can be.
When I'm confused, would Splinter Twin still be banned? Or is it just one card becomes banned?
It's how it is right now.
You
how
can
it is right now.
unban Splinter Twin, but you can't also ban Urza's Tower.
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah. So the way
Exactly.
you said it at the end was a little bit confusing, but I get it now.
Oh, sorry. No. So to clarify, it's exactly how it is right now.
Yeah.
Plus or minus one.
One card,
Plus or
exactly.
minus one.
So just to synthesize that for everybody watching, you can just delete all the thing about waking up, being in your bed.
No,
delete
delete
that. And then you just think to yourself, if you want to ban or unban one card in Modern, what would it be?
It's so true. It's so true.
You don't like the imagery? It's about crafting imagery.
I'm sorry.
I mean, you actually did say
You're
it
a
better.
commentator. Visual conversation is
I know,
the key to your bread and butter.
Kevin's story was pretty good.
I like.
His build up, but I agree with you too.
I just really want to
I'm
watch the
sorry.
movie.
I was also kind of just messing with you a little.
I just want to watch the movie The
It was a
Page
long
Master,
read.
and
All
I'm
right.
just thinking
So
about
everybody,
that.
listen. Everybody, lock in your answer. All right.
Okay.
I'm taking the role of Jake. And we're gonna have Jake start.
Okay.
All right. Jake, what's the card you would ban or unban? And Brad, make sure you lock in your answer. Don't just copy.
I already
off
have
Jake.
my answer.
Just
I've had
because
my answer
Jake's
for 3
smart,
years.
I know you're gonna try to copy off him.
What would I ban or unban?
Yeah.
Oh,
or would it be nothing?
I like
Nothing?
where it is. I like where it is now.
Jake likes where it is now. All right, Brad.
Splinter Twin, come on.
So
Give me
you
Splinter Twin
unban
back.
Splinter Twin.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't need the format to be fair or anyone else to have fun. I just want to start winning while playing my terrible remand decks.
Kevin's also going to say
Kevin?
Splinter Twin.
You're supposed
I
to-
will not say Splinter Twin.
Kevin's gonna
I
say
will not
Stoneforge
Splinter
Mystic,
Twin.
'cause he
I will
also
not
hates
say
Spawn.
Splinter Twin. Splinter Twin.
Splinter
Next.
Twin? Okay, I would say the one card that they should ban is Street Wraith. I think Street Wraith,
Pretty good opinion.
That's a good take.
it's okay. It would make Hollow One a little bit worse. It would make Living End a little bit worse. It would make Death Shadow a little bit worse. The whole thing is, though, the card, it was made to be a 5-mana, 3/4 Swamp Walk card, and then, you know, if you couldn't cast it, pay some life cycle. But that's not what it's being used for, so I just think that Street Wraith just doesn't really belong in Modern, so let's kick that guy out.
That's a decent take.
Yeah.
If I had to ban something, I'd probably ban Ancient Stirrings. This card is, like, ludicrous on power level. Like, it's a 1-mana, find, like, whatever you need to find, or find your land, if, like, you're missing land drops. And it's only used in busted combo decks. It's never used as a fair card anywhere. It's either find your land or bridge in Lantern, find your Karn or your Urza's Tower in Tron. It's find your Teleria West to transmute for your Primeval Titan. Or find your bounce land so you can keep going off, or find your amulet so you can go off. It's find like Mox Opal in KCI, or find like find Scrap Troll or anything. The card is like so busted, and that's all it's used for. It's never used as a fair like cantrip.
That's only because Lucas runs bad. Every time my opponent plays Ancient Stirrings, they just miss.
Oh yeah, it's like
I have never ever seen Ancient Stirrings miss.
Listen,
Tron
for
and there's
everybody,
Ghost Quarter
for
every
everybody
time.
out there who's watching, if you have ever witnessed an Ancient Stirring missing, please let us know. I've never seen Ancient Stirring miss either.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
I've seen it take a nonsense card, but I've never seen it miss.
Well, yeah.
They like take a map with 5 lands in play,
It could miss.
Yeah.
but then
Right?
for it to miss, it has to be like other stirrings, third stirrings, fourth stirrings, sideboard card, sideboard card.
No, it could just be like 2 Sylvan Scryings and like the other 3.
The other, so 5 of the
Yeah.
other 7 green cards in the
Some
deck.
Primeval Titan.
Or like, yeah, Thragtusk or something sometimes they play.
Some Pact Litigation.
The only time
Yeah.
I've ever seen it not take a card is in Lantern when they don't actually want to increase their hand size.
Okay.
It's the only
Yeah.
time I've ever seen the
Sure.
card not
Like,
get a card.
yeah, fail to find on purpose.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Okay.
They always get
I
Chromatic
think
Sphere,
Lucas
and
had a
I'm
really
just
good take here.
still dead.
You know, over the weekend when I was commentating in the semifinals, when Matt Nass cast Ancient Stirrings, I went on a mini rant about how unfair it is to pay 1 mana and look at 5 cards deep and get to put whatever you want in your hands.
Yeah.
Card is absurd power level. I think there are a lot of decks that are good for Modern that would become really bad if they didn't have access to Ancient Stirrings, which is my one reason why I want to leave it the same, because right now the format's like so diverse.
Yeah, the
And
format
I
is
think
good.
The format is just like a format where everybody wants to play Modern.
Yep.
And I think that like right now, like we've got such a good thing. Like I just don't think that I don't want to try to improve upon something that is already like the best in terms of like competitive diversity that we've ever had in a Magic format.
I don't think
Wait,
there's
really-
actually a diverse
Alright.
format. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
no,
I
I
don't
was-
think that. I think all the decks are just all the linear decks are just the same deck.
No, they're not
I don't
the same
think there's
deck.
actually format diversity. Like they
Oh,
all
I thought
functionally
you were
do the
going to
same
say
thing.
that you think everybody's living in a dreamland and there are only like 3 playable decks. I'll subscribe to that philosophy.
And there's a genie outside. But
Well, there's, like-
besides for that.
There's like different versions of. There's like less playable versions of 3 different decks. There's like Tron, then there's like Hollow One, and then there's like Affinity.
No,
and then
I don't
there's,
agree with
like,
that, because
Combo.
that metagame is different a month ago and it'll be different in a month. That I don't agree with. You just basically
Everything-
described 3 macro archetypes.
Yeah, the format's been changing constantly. Like 2 weeks ago, like how you would build a deck for a Modern tournament is massively different than how you would build one for like this weekend.
3 months
And
ago, there were
still,
0.
like 60 plus decks making
Yeah,
day
yeah.
2 at Crimpers.
3 months ago, there
Yeah.
were 0 people complaining about Fateless Looting and a lot of people complaining about Street Wraith and Death Shadow. And now Death Shadow's like almost unplayable.
Yeah, 3
Yeah,
weeks ago,
because they
Blood
just-
Moon was one of the best cards. in
Now
the
they just Hollow One instead.
Sure, but Hollow One was already legal. The
Yeah,
format
man.
evolved and changed. Like, Jason Bloodbraid didn't make Hollow One worse,
No, but they made.
but they changed Modern.
They
But
pushed
like
the point
Modern
of interaction
flows.
back. That's what they did. Jason Bloodbraid, they focused the point of interaction in the
Sure.
format around 4,
And-
and then everyone started like attacking that by moving it back to 3 and 2, and now it's like 1 or 2.
Sure.
It's nonsense.
But Damping Sphere
It's a problem.
will like be in a bunch of sideboards, and whether it's a good card or not, it'll be like a 3 of or a 4 of in everybody's FNM board that hates losing to Tron or Storm or whatever. And the format will ebb and flow. People will realize that that card's nowhere near as good as people think it is, and it's narrower than they think it is, and they'll settle on 1 or 2. It'll beat up on some people, and sideboards will evolve and change, and matchups will move 2% to the left or 2% to the right. And it'll happen over 2 or 3 months because there's massive Modern events every week. So the format can't stagnate because everybody's always rewarded for attacking what the current meta is. And then there's a new best thing to attack. And then there's a new best thing to attack. Until people start playing a format where there's no new cards being introduced, format's going to keep evolving. It's not like old school.
So I've got a question I'd like to ask each of you guys, but before I do that, I kind of want to get Lucas's take on Modern, because Lucas is clearly kind of like the expert in the room right now. He's the one who went undefeated on day one of the Grand Prix. Top,
Yeah.
Like, he finished in 18th out of 1,800
It's a
people.
great
top
finish,
1%,
man. That's
you
grown
know?
man behavior.
So, what's your take? I mean, you played Humans. I thought it was the best deck going into the tournament. Like, do you still feel like it's the best deck?
I played the deck because I thought it was the best deck going into the tournament. The deck is fantastic, and people say there are like 60 like archetypes in Modern, but I don't think there's more than 10 that you'd consider tier 1 or like the best choice for a tournament. I think a lot of the Druid combo decks can fuse into one best version and every other version's obsolete. There's like, there'll be Burn, there'll be Affinity, there'll be a certain form of Tron that's like the best, and there'll be like a certain form of Shadow that's the best, and a certain form of Control. But some of these archetypes aren't even like good right now in Modern. But you can still play whatever you want to in Modern, which means that the format is pretty good right now from a casual perspective, because anyone can win with whatever deck they want to bring. But from a competitive standpoint, I don't think there's more than like 10 like playable decks.
Right. But you do think it's a good format right now?
Yeah, it's currently
It's in a good place.
Yeah.
Okay, and so here I have a question that I want to pose to each of you. What do you think the hardest deck is to play in Modern right now? Of the decks that are capable of doing well at a tournament, like a deck that you're going to, think that it's possible that you could top 8 a Grand Prix with the tournament.
Wait, hold on.
With the deck.
Can Kevin just re-ask that? All right, picture this: Santa Claus is outside your house.
Yeah, Santa Claus
And he
outside
says,
your house.
I can give you anything you want for Christmas, Mr. Jones, but you have to answer this one question. The question is, what do you think is the most difficult deck to play in Modern?
Yeah.
All right, how'd I do?
So
That's
so
at
I would-
Saint
I like
Nick
your
on
voice.
Twitter.
So what I would be like, Santa, here are some cookies and here's some carrots for your reindeer. And I would never play Amulet Titan, because while watching somebody play Amulet Titan, I was always on the edge of my seat, because I was like, I have no idea what play he's going to make, because I have not played 1,000 matches with this deck yet. There are way too many interactions with that in that deck. That deck seems impossible to play. That's my choice. Santa.
I'm going to ignore your question and substitute my own and then give an answer to that. So I'm going to answer what is the the most innocuously difficult deck to play in Modern. What deck looks like it's easy and is actually extremely difficult. And I'm going to pick Humans for that. I think that if Amulet Titan is a 10 out of 10 on difficulty, I think Humans is somewhere between an 8.5 and a 9. And I think that Humans gets treated like it's like a 4. There's so much
Yeah, I
sequencing.
agree
All
with
your
that.
cards do such a similar thing. Every land drop matters. If you play Ziggurat at the wrong time, you can't crack your Canopy. If you don't remember to name Illusion on your second soul land planning ahead, then you draw a Phantasmal Image, they blow up your Vial and you can't cast it. If you don't bluff Vial correctly, you lose points. Like, the deck has so many decisions, and all the cards do such a similar thing of being a 2/2 with some random text line, that the deck is really, really difficult to play.
Yeah.
So, I hope I substituted a good question.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, Santa's not going to give you a present because you didn't answer his question, but
That's fine, I'll get one from the Hanukkah Fairy.
That's just took a strange direction, but that's okay.
Stopping.
So I'm not sure about the current viability of this deck, as it's kind of dropped off the face of the earth. But I think as long as it's legal, the hardest deck to play in Modern is Lantern, and I just don't think it's particularly close.
I think Bloom's harder than Lantern.
I have no idea what Lantern players are ever doing.
Yeah, but they're just like tapping a mill rock.
But
They're
you
not like
played against
transmuting through their
Lantern
whole
enough
deck.
to, like,
Yeah, I don't know
I
how to
played
win.
against Lantern a ton. So, like, if I played with Lantern, I would just play how the people who beat me with Lantern played. Like,
I would just try to
could
put Bridge in
absolutely
play, and then I wouldn't know what to do. I would just try to put all the cards out of my hand as soon as they were in my hand, and I would just say go a lot.
You ever just, watch people play Lantern? It's like... It's... Okay. That's
Bloom
fine.
is way harder.
You just have to recognize what's a relevant card to mill and what isn't a relevant card to mill.
Yeah. Does
Yeah.
that matter? Yes.
I don't know how to do that.
Well, mill their Abrupt Decay. Don't mill their
Tarmogoyf.
Path
Tarmogoyf.
Exile or whatever.
Do
Yeah.
you mill their instant speed draw spells? Do you mill every Thought Scour you see? Do you mill every...
Depends on how many
series?
mill
Yeah,
marks you
that's
have.
experience with the deck. Like against
Yeah.
Tron, you have to mill Chromatic Sphere, but not Star, because Chromatic Sphere is considered a mana ability, and you can't interact
Yeah,
with
and
the top of your
Star
deck.
has a trigger, so you
Yeah.
can mill
Yeah.
in response
But
to the
that's
trigger.
just
and blah, blah,
experience
blah.
with the deck. If
Yeah.
you watch
Yeah.
Canister play the deck for a couple days on his Twitch, then you recognize how to play the deck at a fairly like high level.
Yeah, and if you watch somebody play Bloom for 2 weeks, you're still gonna like have to
yeah.
make 25 mistakes and die to your own pack trigger a bunch of times before you know how to play the deck.
I think
And even then, you might not.
I think I could learn how to play Bloom without ever playing a match against a human being, and I don't think that's true.
The fact that you think Grixis Delver
That's
is
why I
a
think it's
playable deck in Modern right now leads me to believe I don't think you could ever play Amulet Bloom.
I don't know if those two things.
I think
are
my
related,
feelings are hurt.
But that was a sick burn. All right, Gerard.
Grixis
hardest
Delver,
deck
I'm
to
going to
play.
win a big tournament
I would
with
say
it this year.
probably the hardest deck to play is a deck that has the lowest, power built in because you're gonna have to play so well overall. I mean, I'm sure KCI is tough to play. I'm sure Amulets. I never played these decks, so I can't really say. I did play Humans, and I know Brad thought that it was the most difficult deck to play. I would say that that's not the case. I would
Yeah.
say that the
No,
problem.
I think it's harder than it looks. I don't think it's anywhere near as hard as Amulet Bloom, but I think it's way harder than like all of the other creature decks.
Well, I think the biggest issue with Humans, whether it's hard to play or not hard to play, is that when I was playing Humans, I would get to a certain point in the game where I would know I would have almost no chance of winning, and those decks I don't really enjoy playing. So normally with Humans, I could tell by turn 2, maybe turn 3, if I was going to win or lose, and for me, that's not exciting. I want to be on the edge.
Really?
Until, yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of Humans games where like I don't.
You're just
really
like a
know
man
what's up
strider
there.
away.
For me, I would just be like, yeah, I'm winning, or yep, I'm losing. There's times where I've been wrong, where I'm like, I'm definitely gonna win, and they top deck and they run perfect, or I'm definitely gonna lose and I run perfect. But overall, I don't think Humans is that difficult to play. So
I watched people play
some people
Humans.
say Hollow One is the most difficult deck to play.
Well, that's because
I-
people turn one Burning Inquiry, just like without a hollow one in their hand.
Well, no, I know Mike
It's
Sigler
like-
said that he didn't play the deck perfectly. So
Okay.
and he's a really good player.
I watched people
My
play
Series is
Humans,
real good at Magic.
and I often win a lot when I play against Humans because I play various Jeskai decks, and they're usually pretty good against Humans. When I play against Lucas, he never makes a bad attack. When I covered his matches, he doesn't make a bad
Well, do you
attack.
beat Lucas?
No, we both always lose.
I've never
no
won
matter
a
what
game
our hand
against
is.
Lucas in my life.
I had a hand that was like bolt, helix, path, timely, 2 land, and I still like died on turn 5.
Yep, not even close. I just walked away. I didn't even know what
Yeah.
to do. I'm like, I give up.
He's just so good. That's why I think Humans is just like so much harder, because I'm like, Lucas never loses with this deck, and then I try to play a league with him, and I'm like, dude, I made 26 mistakes, and I only thought I made 15 decisions. Like,
I used to beat Lucas in the Teamer Energy Mirror. That was one place where I had his number.
that's because you just like put Glimmer and other grindy cards in your deck to be favored in the mirror, and he left his deck normal. And if you were playing 75 card mirrors, you would not have had the 70-30
No, I
split
would
that
have
you did.
lost every single game.
Yeah. So.
The Humans deck requires so much knowledge of early sequencing and knowledge of the format, because all of your 2-drops have a certain priority of when they have to come down, and it all depends on what you saw turn 1 your opponent do. Like, if you know they're on Affinity, then like your turn 2 has to be like Freebooter, so that you can like snipe like a Galvanic Blast or a Cranial Plating from their hand. Whereas like if you see Scalding Tarn, you know you have to lead on Thalia versus the Freebooter, and then play Freebooter afterwards, so they have to burn their 2-mana removal spell on the Thalia or let it get caught under the Freebooter. And you have all these decisions you have to make based on knowing their deck, and like you have to always play to like best/worst case scenario of the top of your deck. So
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. But what do you think is the hardest deck to play?
definitely Amulet. I would enjoy trying to play Amulet on Magic Online, but I know I'd be burning at least 500 tickets learning the deck to like 65% efficiency.
Yeah.
So, and I probably still will be like a losing player with the deck.
So I agree with basically what everybody said there. I think like Humans is deceptively hard. I think that if you are playing a lot of Modern, and if you've played with a lot of decks in Modern, like because I've been practicing to do commentary at the GPs, I've kind of been like switching what deck I play from league to league. But I have been playing basically a league with Humans every week for the last month and a half, 2 months. And like for me, I've not found Humans to be exceedingly difficult to play well, to play to a lot of success. But I've also been playing with like every popular deck in Modern. So when I'm playing against a deck, I'm like, oh, well, what would I want me to do the least? And then I like am able to do that. But most people don't get to play with every single deck and don't have that opportunity. So I think there are a lot of decisions to make. I think the deck's harder to play than most aggro decks. It's definitely harder to play than like an Elves or a Merfolk or a something like that.
Burn or something like that.
Yeah.
Throwing Merfolk under the bridge again, or throwing it into the water again.
They're just already
They love
outside
being
waiting
in the
for him.
water.
It doesn't matter anymore. The Merfolk players are already outside waiting
Yeah.
for Jake.
Yeah, they're furious. Yeah, anything else you guys wanted to talk about in regards to Modern?
No, I think that's
Pretty
good.
show.
Yeah,
Lucas
that's
is
a great
just
show.
like really good at Modern.
Do we
Yeah.
want to give Lucas
It's
a
been
couple
great
questions
having
about
Lucas
his
here.
humans deck, or you think we did that already? We're
Um,
probably good on that,
Well,
right?
I mean, he changed his deck list up a little. Do you want to talk about like 3-mana Thalia, 4th Image?
Okay, so for the tournament, I played 3-mana Thalia as like a slight hedge to the Mirror and Tron. And by the end of the day, I didn't play against the Mirror or Tron, but I also think that I wanted a 4th Phantasmal Image, which I've seen a lot of lists changing to, just as more repetition in your draws. I've seen a lot of deck lists cut to 3 Thalia, which I think is incorrect. I think the card's either the best card in your deck or like medium at best, and it just gets sideboarded out. But when you want a Thalia on board, it's definitely like the card you want on the board against any type of interactive deck.
Yeah, it's like irreplaceable. Like
Yeah.
you can beat down with any of your creatures, but Thalia does something that nothing else in your deck can do.
Yeah.
and the
So I
removal
think-
spell always like costs as much, at least as much as the
Yeah.
cost.
It's insane how well it spirals actually from playing against the deck. It's just like, oh, you have to spend 2 mana, and then it's like you get freeboard and you can't do it next turn, and it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Even against like Black Red Hollow One, you still want like turn 2 Thalia. That's probably still your best play is turn 2 Thalia, just because on the play it shuts off their explosive Faith's Leading Burning Inquiry turns because their spells just cost more.
They can't play a Hollow One or Angler plus
And
get back
bring back a
Phoenix,
chicken, yeah.
and then they get Reflector Mage and can't do it again, and then they take 4 and then 6. It's crazy.
How's
It's
the
so
blue-white
good.
matchup?
The blue-eye matchup favorable for humans unless they're on like 1 Supreme Verdict, 1 Wrath of God, and like 1 Cellar Wreckage.
Okay. Then it favors the blue-white player.
Then it's like closer to 50-50.
Yeah, because then
Okay.
you just have to Meddling Mage the right thing and cross your fingers.
Because the humans can still like Thalia freebooter your 1 spell and like just like kill you out of the game on like turn 4 or 5.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So what did you end up cutting for that for the Heretic Cathar? Did you cut like the Kessing Malcontent or
Yeah.
Okay,
I have
that's what makes the most sense.
yeah, I've disliked the Malcontent.
Same, so yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
was
just
playing
like
another Confidant over it.
I like 1 Confidant. I could see going to 2, but I definitely don't like the Malcontents. It's just its usefulness is only in very, very corner cases. And I just don't like that. Even though it's still only a 1-of, I don't like how it is not good the majority of the times you play the card, and it gets boarded out in like I feel like at least 80% of matchups.
I think it was good when like the format facilitated board stalls, and I don't think that's really the case anymore because I think that all the decks are kind of trying to race each other.
But I think the deck has also just figured out how to get out of board stalls, which is like having 8 Mantis Riders.
Yeah.
And 8 Reflector Mages.
You also have to think about what decks you're getting into board stalls with. The Mirror is like the one place where I definitely want Malcontents and against Tron, but against like all of the company decks, I'd rather just hedge against company by putting 2 Grafdigger's Cages in my board than playing this Malcontents main.
Did you like it against Mardu?
The
Malcontents?
Malcontents? No, that's like where it's at its worst because they're trying to kill every creature you have, and then it's just like 3 mana, 3/1, deal like 2 to you.
Yeah. There are a
Yeah,
lot
it's,
of...
like, it's really bad against Jund, Mardu, like any deck that has like more than 8 spot removal spells.
Yeah.
Okay, so
all
I
the same
thought
matchups where you cut Lieutenant.
that those were the decks that kind of leaned on their creatures, but I guess like the Jund matchup not really, but like the Mardu matchup, I felt like both players had pretty substantial boards when I watched like Jerry and Javier Dominguez with the PT and stuff. It just seemed like Malcontents would have been good there. I don't know. I think it could just be small sample size or whatever, but
In my experience, it's
Yeah.
at its worst when,
Yeah.
when they're like a push plus pull deck.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Against those grindy decks, you side out Lieutenants just because you don't want to have this 2 mana 1/1 in your deck when they're
Yeah.
killing all your stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, then
And
Malcontents definitely not good
And
there.
it used to be you're out to bridge, but now you just like have Rex Age.
yeah.
The Rex
Okay.
Sage has been fantastic in the board. I was able to like turn 2 play Rex Sage, blow up a Cranoplating from Affinity, and then like Phantasmal Image it, blow up like your Arcmount Ravager, which is just like insane.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Vial is a broken Magic card.
Vile's pretty good.
So good. So stupid.
Yeah, Vile's really, really good in Modern. I think Humans is the best Vile deck we've ever had in Modern.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sweet. Like, Vile's a card that is really fun to play with, that, it's always been, in terms of pure power level, one of the best cards in Modern, but it's never really had, like, a good home.
I think
Like,
that
in,
mono
like,
white
a-
Hate Dares deck was a pretty good Vial deck for a while, but I think Humans
think
is
that
just
that
bad.
deck
but
is
it was
just like
never,
a bad-
It was never tier 1.
It's just a bad Humans deck.
It's just mono white Ponza, and it's like pretending to be a real deck.
No, Restoration Angel is great.
The whole deck is Stone Rains.
Let's leave before I start talking about Restoration Angel.
Mengar of Korondor.
Yeah.
Gotta, if you don't have Caracas, though,
With
I want to
Caracas,
just
that was
get
sweet.
yours.
So, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I think we have a giveaway. Do we?
Yeah, we're
So I need to- I need to
giving
find
away
out,
humans coaching from Lucas.
Yeah, guys, if you want
Yeah.
humans coaching, and if you want merfolk bashing, we have 2 prizes.
And if you want coaching on how to be a good human, don't ask anybody on the show.
Jake's pretty good human.
Oh, Jake's a really good human.
And Lucas is a sweetie.
You can ask Kevin where to find genies, though.
Oh yeah, you won't find him in the corner of your yard,
Corner of your yard. That's where you're gonna find him.
waking you up. Yeah.
All right. So a question from the chat: should people be dusting off their torpor orbs?
No.
No.
Torpor
So,
Orb is just
We
a
have
bad
this great
card.
story. Go ahead, tell it.
Yeah.
So I played against Boggles round 10 of the GP, and I lost game 1 because they played Daybreak Coronet, and once that card resolves, I can't ever win the game.
Yeah.
Game
Agreed.
2, they played turn 2 Torpor Orb, and my draw was just like turn 1 Noble, turn 2 Mantis Rider, turn 3 like Thalia Phantasmal, and he just like died.
Yeah.
So it is good against like the champion lieutenant freebooter draws, but specifically in a deck like Boggles, I feel like the deck loses more to like Meddling Mage and Thalia than the cards with ETB effects. So I definitely don't think the card is very good.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that was not a great story.
No, the great story is different, but it's for apparently it's for after the show. The great story is that
okay.
we have a teammate who had somebody suggest to him, "Hey, I think Torpor Orb's absurd against humans,"
Okay.
and then they like shopped the idea around and everybody shot it down. So then the next day when the roommate walked in, he tried to pin the idea on the roommate and just like told him straight up, "Yo, by the way, Torpor Orb's an awful card against humans. You were super wrong." When it was his own idea and had been vetoed. That was the good story.
That's a very good story. It's just the best story I've ever heard in my entire life.
All right, that's fine.
Dude, you hyped it up too much.
You're
I'm
right.
sorry.
I'm not gonna tell a story today. That way, that's the worst story that was told today.
Yeah.
You told the genie story. You still snap lost.
Yeah.
That was a really good story, Kevin. That was really good.
The
I'm
genie
absolutely
story was
serious.
fantastic.
Yeah, you like bad stories.
Is it a story or hypothetical?
So another,
Oh,
another
Kevin really
question,
has a genie.
Another
One more
question for you
question.
guys.
Yeah.
So team season coming up. We have Columbus on the horizon. We've got Toronto. We've got DC. We've got this team tournament coming up, the Bearded Dragon, where every single member of the winning team
Get some mocks.
gets a mox, like an actual mox, not like some opal or something. I'm talking about like emeralds,
No
rubies,
ambers.
and
Yeah, no
pearls.
ambers.
Although down the area
We're
will be
talking
legal.
about
For that tournament.
real moxing. So let's say you're looking to put together a team. You know, it's like that movie, the Expendables or whatever. You know, you're trying to put together your squad. What are you looking to do when you're putting together a team? Like, what are the most important things? Are you just looking to find 3 people who are the 3 best Magic players possible, or do you need to find, or are there certain qualities that make somebody better in team play or worse in team play?
I think it depends on what event you're trying to go to. Like, when I try to build my team for these events at the Bearded Dragon, I'm trying to find 2 players that I'm friends with who are the best 2 players I can play with. But for my upcoming team RPTQ, I'm trying to find 2 human beings that are willing to play Magic next to me that are the best that I can find so that I can go to the Pro Tour. Because I am willing to have 8 hours of misery to queue for the Pro Tour. Because I've had more miserable days than that at PBTQs anyway. But when I'm coming to the local card shop to just like have some fun, I need to make sure I have fun with my friends. So for me, it depends on the goal, which is determined by what tournament it is.
Okay. Kevin?
I think that if it's constructed trios, then I think that format specialists are important. I think getting a strong Legacy player is great. I think just picking one of your friends to play Legacy and handing them Grixis Delver when they've never really played Legacy is a terrible idea.
Yeah,
It might
hand them
sink
last.
your tournament. But I think that, I think format specialists are good. I think generally you just want to allow people to play what they're comfortable with. So figure out a team combination where you have people playing the formats they like / are the best at. Usually they like the formats they're the best at. Don't put me in your Modern seat, please, if you ever team with me, because
Don't put Kevin in your modern seat.
people think I'm a Modern player, but I am like a lifetime, probably 47% win percentage in Modern. I don't know, I could check on ELO or whatever, but I don't know. I think that it's basically just about playing to your strengths. You should go over communication rules beforehand. Like, if one, it's really rough if one person thinks that you should converse over plays, and the person playing doesn't want any help, and if they want help and the person playing and the people who are watching don't know how to give help correctly without like leaking things by talking too loud or whatever, just like a variety of things going on. Don't draw. That's a huge thing. Play fast, because anytime you're giving advice, you're essentially just tanking and wasting time. So you got to remember that too. Well, I don't know. A lot of stuff. I think team tournaments are great, though. I enjoy them a lot.
All right, Troy.
I think Kevin said everything.
All right, he did. He said everything in the entire world. Lucas.
I don't know. You have to find that your teammates are competent at their own at the game, so that you don't feel like you're hovering over them, watching them play. But you also have to figure out like who's best at which format.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Yeah.
So I'm actually have like a little bit of a deeper take on this. I think that there's a lot more to doing well at teams than people give it credit for. I think that a really important thing is I think you could have the best modern player, the best legacy player, and the best standard player, and if those people, if any of them are prone to tilting, that can be contagious, first of all. So it doesn't matter how good somebody is, if they're more prone to tilting than somebody else, then that's a person you want to actively avoid having on your team if you want to succeed, because tilting is contagious and it's bad for you. Another thing is that you need pragmatists. I think that it is important to be able to look your teammates' match and say that they're making a mistake. Like, if there are people who are good Magic players who are like, oh, when I'm playing in a team tournament, I don't want my teammates talking to me and messing me up. Like, you don't want somebody like that on your team. Like, I have succeeded in team tournaments in the past because when my teammate looks at my hand and says, you should do this, I'm willing to be like, oh, why? I was going to do this. And then they can be like, because of this. And if they're right, I do what they say. If they're wrong, I do what I want them to do. And I want a teammate who I also have the power to say, hey, you should do that. And instead of them getting defensive over their own play, they say, why? And I explain why, and they say their own play, and they say why, and then we do the correct one. I think not being defensive of your own play, being like a pragmatist, is a really powerful thing to have, because two minds are going to be better than one, even if those two minds are individually not as strong as two different minds that aren't willing to work together.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's how you get successful in team play, and, just being able to trust your teammates also. Obviously, format specialists and all that stuff's probably even more important, but I think that these factors also play into it.
Okay.
And I think avoiding tilting people is way more important than people give it credit for.
I think when multiple people are trying to play the same game, it sometimes is counterproductive, because it's better to have a bad plan by yourself than two people having different plans that don't work together. Also, like, the single person that's been playing the game the entire time has so much more hidden information than their teammates that sometimes it might seem, for a current situation, that they should be doing something else when, like, their plan was, like, always correct.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
I definitely get that. I also think it's possible, though, that I think it's even more common that people tunnel vision inside of a game. That, like, within the texture of a game, you stop seeing, like people start fighting over something that's, like, not necessarily the most important thing in the game. And, like, an outside viewer is able to, identify that better than the person who's inside the game sometimes. But, I think that what you said is also a very good point. I think that, somebody actually sitting there and being part of the game, like, they definitely have, like, a greater set of knowledge than somebody who's just, like, glancing upon it for a second. Like, they might have an idea of what's in their opponent's hand because of X, Y, or Z. And the person who's suggesting a play to them has to also be willing to understand, like, their point of view and why they were thinking about what they were doing. So we have a winner for our giveaway.
Okay.
The winner is Aero Hendrix. That's AERO Hendrix, like Jimi Hendrix. Congratulations. You just won.
You know Jimi Hendrix is a
we're
lefty,
giving away
right?
today.
No.
What's the
Really?
giveaway today?
Oh my God, Kevin.
What's the giveaway today?
We don't know what the giveaway is yet because we want to surprise you. We actually know what it is, but we're going to
The
slow roll
person
you.
who won it
Yeah.
probably knows what it is.
It's at least a Dominaria box.
It's probably a Dominaria box, which is a pretty nice pickup.
And all 36 packs are there this time, right? Just like
Sealed.
last time?
Yeah, there might only be 35. I might take one. I might take one of them. Just
Tax
one.
day after all.
Yeah.
Just one.
Gerard gets hungry sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, this has been a great show. Thank you, Lucas, very much for joining us.
Yeah, it was
Thanks for
great.
having me.
I'm Jacob Van Lunen. This is Passing Priority. JVLTMS on Twitter. Follow me. It's Brad Bonin. That's Kevin Jones. Gerard Fabiano. That's Lucas Cruz. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. Be well.